So I'm joined for episode number 3 of Past and Present by another absolute cult hero of Culture United, Mr. Greg Halford. Greg, how are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, not too bad. Really appreciate you coming on. We'll get straight into it. You were in Culture United's Youth Academy in around 2001 to 2002. Um, what were your sort of standout memories from that early time?
Oof, that is going back a little bit. Um, I don't know really. It's a bit of a blur, to be honest with you. Until I started going into, like, in my age group, I was the last one to get a scholarship, a YT back then. Um, and then as soon as I had that offered, it felt like the chains had been released, and like I could just go full pelt. And I spent a year in the YT, in my first year, sort of playing up the age groups, trained with the first team a couple of times, and then sort of my second year, I really kicked on. Played a lot of games for reserves, and then obviously made my debut against Luton on Easter weekend. So I think that obviously that's my biggest memory of being part of the youth team, was obviously making my debut so early. Um, Obviously it wasn't a great result. We lost 5-0, but that experience I'll never forget.
Yeah, it's sort of like that sort of thing. Like you say, he was the last one to get the scholarship, but when you actually got on that pitch, you sort of. I said the same. I had Carl on last night, and he said when he come on against Hereford, he sort of looked around and was like, "I've done it. I've got to where I want to be." Um, at that sort of age, who was it that was your sort of like biggest influence when you was at the team? Who sort of like took you under their wing?
Probably Scotty McGleish. I was his boot boy. So obviously back then we had jobs to do. So um, Scotty Scotty was good to me. I looked after his boots, gave me a rollicking when when they weren't clean. But he was really good with me. And then you had sort of the likes of Doogie and Kem and Tom Pino. Um, who else was there? Richard McKinney was good. And then I'm just trying to think. Pat Baldwin was good as well, and Liam Chilvers. So they're all top blokes. Like really nice guys, like off the pitch as well. So yeah, it was a really good atmosphere to come into.
The names that you mentioned there, you sort of said about like them being like how they were with you. They are just absolute icons and absolute heroes for the club. So it's not surprising that they sort of helped you get along. We'll fast forward a little bit. Obviously, like I said, we've had Kem and Carl on the channel already, and we spoke about that sort of promotion season. Obviously, you was quite young at that time and was sort of still building and building. What was the promotion like for you?
Yeah, it was obviously is one of my favorite experiences as a professional. I think it was that year where I was at the beginning, or maybe the year before. I was really going through a tough period where, like, my consistency wasn't great, and I was coming in and out of the team. I couldn't really play 3 games on the bounce because I was young. I was still getting sort of my legs. Um, I remember, where was it? I think it was Southend away. Actually, I got booed by the Col U fans because um, they felt that I wasn't really putting in the effort. But it wasn't the case. I always gave 100%. It was just I was so young. I didn't know how to deal with confidence. So when it went, I didn't know how to handle it. But obviously Phil Parkinson was great with me. So that promotion season was unreal. Obviously, I think we had the FA Cup alongside that as well, which was a great experience. But obviously, the standout moment was Yeovil away, picking up that result. Obviously, we would have liked to have won the league, and like sort of losing out to Southend wasn't ideal, but at the end of the day, we got to where we needed to get to and where we wanted to get to. So it was all in all great.
Yeah, it was a bittersweet moment, like you say, because it was that thing where it was like we've got the promotion, we've got into the championship, but unfortunately Southend sort of come up with us. I've got to ask as well about, and this is something that I found out when I done the interview with Carl. Aidan Davidson apparently quite likes Ring of Fire. Apparently that song was played quite a lot from Yeovil to Colchester.
Yeah, I don't really remember the journey back, to be honest with you. I remember getting back to Colchester, and we all went out in Colchester that night. But I don't remember sort of the journey back. It's all a bit of a blur because trying to sort of let everything sink in. But yeah, I do remember Aidan being a massive Ring of Fire fan. It wasn't only that time he was playing it; it was pretty much throughout the entire of the season. So he was a great guy to have. You know, that experience that he had helped us guide us throughout the season.
No, definitely he was.
And
Yeah, when
he is a maniac as well.
to be honest,
He,
I've heard. So when I had Kem on, I was asking him about like former teammates, and asked him about Dean Gherkin, and he said the same
yeah,
thing. He was like, he went, it must just be a goalkeeper thing that they're just absolutely bonkers. And I
yeah,
don't think I've heard many stories where goalkeepers haven't just been absolute like you say, maniacs.
yeah,
But yeah, you got to have that bit a little nous to be in goal that when a striker's come charging at you, you're diving in at his feet. So yeah,
yeah,
you got to be
exactly. You
a
got to
bit
have a loose screw up there or something
yeah,
to be a
definitely.
goalkeeper. And you know, Dino learned from the best with Aiden. So you know, obviously the keepers that we had before that, we had Brownie, um, who was a bit mental as well. As I said earlier, Richard McKinney as well. So yeah, there is definitely a trend with goalkeepers.
100%. So we'll fast forward a little bit. It's 2007, you got the move to Reading. How did that sort of the move come about? Because it was quite a big sort of jump from Colchester to Reading.
Yeah, it was. It didn't come out of the blue. You know, even the promotion season, I was getting a lot of interest from clubs. You know, Man United made inquiries. All the big clubs made inquiries. Sheffield United ended up putting an offer in, which got rejected. You know, Neil Warnock was manager at the time. But I felt sort of going to Reading was a very similar style club to Colchester. It was very family orientated. It wasn't a massive club, and I felt like I would be suited better there than going to, you know, like the Man Uniteds, the Arsenals, or someone like that, and I'd have a better chance of getting into the team. So that was my thinking behind going to Reading. Obviously, that didn't really pan out that well, um, but you know, obviously with Parky, well, Parky had gone at the time, so it was Geraint who was manager of Colchester at the time. But I spoke to Kev Watson, who was obviously ex Reading. I spoke to Curo, who was ex Reading as well, and they couldn't sing Reading's praises high enough. So that sort of sealed the deal with me. And then obviously speaking to Steve Coppell and the management at Reading, yeah, I chose to go there in the end.
Is one of you sort of you had your options. You was like, I've got the big clubs. I've got the Man United, the Arsenal's coming in for me. I could go there, probably get a nice paycheck, but not probably play as many games, or I can go to
Yeah,
Reading and then build and build and build.
yeah.
Obviously, from Reading, you obviously moved to Sunderland, loan spells at Charlton, Sheffield United, then moved to Wolves, Portsmouth, Forest, quite a few teams. How did you sort of adapt to each changing room, each manager? Was there one manager that sort of stood out to you? Like he's a real top bloke.
To be honest, the reasons why I had so many clubs was I couldn't adapt to the change rooms at the end of the day. So, with obviously my diagnosis of being autistic later on in life, I figured out why I couldn't adapt to them changing rooms. Obviously, I went to Charlton and I sort of bedded in better there, but that was purely because Parky was already there. So I had a familiar face. He gave me the confidence just to go in and play my normal game. But then I went back to Sunderland at pre-season for a little bit, and then ended up going to Sheffield United. But even there, the fans, I think, took to me in the end. But again, that took me 6 months to be able to really bed into the team. And, I was in and out of the team for the first 6 months, but it's not always the way you start, it's the way you end. So, that last 6 months, the second half of the season, I really kicked on. I changed position because obviously we had Kyle Walker and Kyle Norton coming into the team, and then we had Sunji Hai as well, who was a right back. So Kevin Blackwell pushed me further forward. I ended up being top scorer that season, and then obviously losing in the playoff final to Burnley. But yeah, to answer your question, I didn't bed in. It took me years and years to be able to figure out how to fit into a change room and get the best out of my sort of playing style and really be able to interact with all the players and staff. And that probably didn't happen until really I got to Portsmouth.
What was it that sort of when you got to Portsmouth, you were able to sort of find your feet again? Was it a manager? Was it a player? Was it a familiar face?
Yeah, there was familiar faces there. Obviously, Dave Kitson. So I was at Reading with Dave Kitson. And sort of having played, what would I have been up to? Nearly 200, 250 games up, first team games going into Portsmouth. I felt like I'd made my name, sort of. So I earned the respect, and everyone knew that I was a good player. So kind of like the pressures of being able to interact with the change room was a lot easier because I had that sort of stature. But with Portsmouth, the good thing with Portsmouth was the lads. The lads were so nice. We did a lot of stuff together outside of the football. So we would go for something to eat or whatever it was. We were doing a lot of stuff after the training sessions, and which really helped being able to make them sort of relationships with the players. So I obviously went on loan to begin with, and they ended up signing me permanently. But yeah, I think that was sort of the real turning point, to be honest, in my career.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things I think that a lot of Colchester fans will remember. You'll see your time at Colchester, the move over to Reading, and then your time sort of at Portsmouth as well. Um, Playing for all of them different teams, did that give you the sort of like knowledge to then sort of help you in other positions? Because you mentioned earlier that you were a right back, then you sort of moved to the right midfield. When you was at Colchester, you was right back, defensive midfield, striker. Do you sort of wish that you were able to just focus on one position, or were you happy to sort of be a versatile man?
I think at that age, I was happy to be versatile. I was always brought up to believe that if you could play 11 positions, then you have 11 chances of getting into the team. But now looking back at it and hindsight and everything like that, you know, I wish I did master one position. And I think I would have gone on and played a lot more games in the Premier League if I had a set position. But you know, every club that I went to and every manager that I worked under had a different opinion about me. You know, I signed at Wolves as a right winger. I played at Sheffield United as sort of a striker and sort of a left-sided striker. Who else? Neil Warnock saw me as a holding midfielder. So all these different aspects of it's a really good it's really good praise for me to have all these top managers say, well, you can play in this position. I see you as this position, which is great, and it's a bit of an ego boost. But at the same time, yeah, I do wish that I'd mastered one position. And I think probably at a holding midfielder or a centre back probably would have been the best position for me. Looking back at it, I think I was probably a little too big and too slow off the mark to be a right back, but people like Dan Burns is changing that perception now. So yeah, I think a holding midfielder or a centre back would have been perfect for me.
I suppose, yeah, when you look back on it, yeah, having that versatility, like you say, Neil Warnock signed you as a defensive midfielder, but probably in the back of his mind, he was thinking, I'm getting a DM, but I'm also getting someone that can fill in at right back, can fill in at centre back. So when he needs to change things, he doesn't need to take a player off the pitch. He can just move you over somewhere. So it's one of them things that you can, through your career, you can go, no, I'm going to focus on being a right back, but then you were saying obviously like earlier on that you had Carl Walker and you had other people fighting in your position. So you were like, I can either say, no, I'm going to be a right back and not be in the squad, or go, well, I can play right mid as well. So it's just adapting. Yeah. And I think that's sort of quite an important thing for the people that are young and that are watching and that want to get into football is, just because you want to play up front, don't just be a striker. Think of other positions that you can sort of play in. And like you say, you look at the career you've had where right back, defensive mid, right mid, striker, just being able to be versatile opens you up to so many different teams, managers, play styles, and everything. So during your time of playing, what opponent or teammate would you say left the sort of biggest impression on you?
And Gary Speed would have been really high up on that list. He was unbelievable, quite in his sort of latter stages of his career. But he was the perfect pro. I did everything right, ate right, slept right, drank right, trained right, everything. And he gave me a lot of advice sort of when we were at Sheffield United. I think Jermaine Genius was a good one at Nottingham Forest as well, playing so many games in the Premier League, coming down to the Championship to get fit after his knee injury. Who else was there? That's a tough question. I think obviously the sort of the Premier League legends as well, like Andy Cole and Dwight Yorke were good at Sunderland. Sort of that was the first real time where sort of I'd played with established Premier League players that had won the Champions League, won Premier League medals as well. So, you know, them sort of players earlier on in my career were pivotal in sort of me developing.
Yeah. So, like looking at the teams that you've played for, you've gone up and down the country, left and right. It is an absolutely incredible career. Obviously, you spent some time up in Scotland for Aberdeen. It was only the 2 games, and then over in Ireland for Waterford. What were them two sort of leagues like playing in compared to like the English leagues?
No comparison. No comparison. You know, the Scottish league. Yeah, I mean, if you're not playing for Celtic or Rangers, it's probably might get crucified for this. It's probably bottom half League One, and then some of the teams would be League Two in comparison. But then even sort of playing the likes of Celtic and Rangers, they weren't at that time weren't great. Um, but that was at the latest stages of my career where, you know, I'd won promotion for Cardiff to the Premier League, but I hadn't played or trained for 8 months when I went up to Aberdeen. So I was very rusty. I didn't give a good account of myself up there. And then Waterford, the Irish League. To be honest with you, I was very surprised with that league. It was very technical. It wasn't physical at all. It was very technical, and there's some decent players out in Ireland, and I mean that's why so many of them come over to this country. It's a good little market over there. You know, the likes of Kevin Doyle and Shane Long and Seamus Coleman and all these players who have had unbelievable careers in the Premier League have come from Ireland. So um, it it was surprising going over there, but it was a great experience.
So one of the other teams that you played for as well is it's not a conventional football team, is what I would
Mhm.
say, because of
Yeah,
how they started. But hashtag United, that's
yeah.
a bit of a strange one. What was that move like? How did it feel, sort of playing for what some people still say are just a YouTube football club?
It was unreal, to be honest with you. It was
Yeah,
unreal. Obviously, the standard of football isn't great. Going back, sort of being a part-time footballer, I was just sort of wanting to carry on as long as I could. Obviously, Joey Keefe was there, which was good, and sort of I had a chat with Joey before going in, and I went and watched training. I had a chat with the manager, and um, it was a real eye opener over there. You know, it was hard getting used to having cameras in the change room before and during and after the games. But the way Spencer, the owner, is doing things over there, he is he is a visionary. And you know, there's so many clubs. I think sort of him doing what he's done at hashtag has incentivized a lot of professional clubs to do more media. Um, you see it all the time now, where you know they're interacting with the players and the staff, and you know, and he was the OG of that, Spen. So I can't thank him enough for giving me that experience. He's such a nice guy, and you know, I'm really grateful for that. But yeah, like I said, it was a real eye opener, but something that I wouldn't change.
yeah, yeah. Hashtag United. I remember I've followed Spencer for years on social media, like the stuff he's done on YouTube. And I remember when he formed it, and it was playing against like other YouTubers and like Soccer AM and stuff like that. And then he created his team. And I remember when he first went to make it, there was a lot of like people were saying you can't be a football club because you haven't got a fixed location. And his instant response was, "Where's Port Vale?" And then it sort of made it go, I'm genuinely serious about this. And yeah, like you say, the work that they do, because they are quote from YouTube, they've
Yeah.
got that media background, and every club's now sat there and gone, do you know what? This YouTube thing, instead of just uploading highlights, if we upload these other things, and you look at what Culture are doing this season, all the
Yeah.
behind the scenes stuff, it's all,
Mhm.
in theory, it's all stuff that hashtag have been doing for years, because it's what,
Yeah.
like you say, it's what Spencer knows. It's what Spencer's bread and butter is.
Yeah.
So, from all of your sort of playing career, is there one sort of moment where you sort of, it like brings back memories and you go, oh, I've really enjoyed that time, whether that's at Colchester or one of the other clubs you played for, where you sort of, a certain date reminds you of a certain game?
Well, I think the biggest thing for me is I see more than anything else was the goal to send us to Wembley at Sheffield United. I see that goal a lot more than any other goal that I've scored, and it gives me goosebumps every time I see it, and the reliving the sound of the fans when it goes in. It's amazing. Obviously, the Yeovil game to win promotion is obviously a big thing that sticks with me. Um, Obviously, winning my first cap for England as well is a big thing, and especially sort of coming from, we were in League One at the time, so I was essentially the lowest ranked player in our squad for England at that time. Um, and being able to score, and like scoring the penalty shootout against France and everything like that, that was an amazing experience. And then obviously the newest one would be, or the the newest one would be obviously winning promotion with Cardiff.
Yeah.
Getting that promotion with probably the best group of lads that I've come across in a change room at Cardiff um, was unbelievable. So they're the main things that really stand out for me.
So now, obviously, you announced recently that you've retired from football. What's life after football been like? How have you adapted from sort of going from playing football to not playing football?
It's been pretty easy, to be honest. I thought it was going to be a lot harder, but I've had projects in the background where it's kept me busy. I'm now coaching at Middlesbrough. I'm doing the under 15s and 16s at Middlesbrough, which has been great. I started in February, and I've been doing that since. I've got a couple of businesses as well, like clothing businesses as well. So um, I have been full on. And then obviously with the boxing that I had a couple of weeks ago, training for that was intense, 100 times more intense than any football session. Um, so that kept me busy as well. So yeah, I haven't been short of things to do. So yeah, it's which I'm grateful for, because I think it would have been a real tough period, sort of giving up football and not having anything to fall back on.
No, that is perfect. Like you said, a lot of people do sort of struggle to go through that transition of sort of playing football every day to then sort of not. And it's not sort of a thing where you sort of gradually slow down. It is literally you go to bed one night, you're a footballer, you wake up the next morning, essentially you're unemployed, and it's like, right, what do I do now? And
Yeah.
it is quite difficult. It's been absolutely incredible chatting with you. A closing tradition that I have with any of the players that I have on. For any of the sort of young Culture fans that are watching this, or just young football fans in general, what advice would you give them to help them sort of become a pro footballer? If they're in the academy and they're wanting to stand out at a trial, what advice would you give them?
Just train every day. Whether that's football or not. Sort of when I was growing up, I did every sport under the sun. So I was doing athletics, I was doing basketball, I was doing hockey, I was doing rugby, I was doing all these different sports to help sort of coordination, hand-eye coordination, reflexes, everything like this. Like all these different sports are going to help you. If you want to be a footballer, then do as many sports as you can, because I always say, basketball gave me quick thinking because it's on a smaller pitch or court. Gave me the tools to be able to think quick. Athletics, obviously, that goes hand in hand with football. Gave me the chance to be able to hone my sort of my posture and running technique and everything like that, which goes into football. So don't limit yourself to football, but train every day, whether it can be at any sport you want. But if you want to be a footballer, obviously try and incorporate that football with the different sports, and stay off social media as much as possible.
Yeah, social media is it's lovely for some things, but it's also absolute torture.
Yeah.
Greg, thank you so much for joining me today, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure to just delve into your time in football in general, really. Best of luck with everything that you're doing. Best of luck with all the businesses at Middlesbrough and everything. And yeah, again, thank you so much for joining me.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.